He said, what is sweet and what is terrible about life, that you have to know both those things. And the poet ignores neither. So hopefully it's not the kind of conservatism where you're trying to go back to some Edenic, Rousseauistic past where everyone can gather under one oak tree and discuss the problems of the village. That's never going to happen. But the poet he does not hide, or she does not hide the beauty of life, and does not hide the alienation. You know, this century we've had tremendous emphasis on looking into the cracked mirror of alienation and saying, look at where we are. I mean, Eliot's The Wasteland was all about that. But there's another side to it too. You can only do that for so long, otherwise you have no more impetus to go on.
That there has to be, let's go here. Yeah. There has to be some kind of healing. There can only be so much of this existential angst and... Well,
you see, Sartre, he came up to a tree, you said, and he put his finger on the tree and he said, life is absurd because I cannot understand that tree, I cannot get my soul into that tree. Well, the Zen patriarchs have been talking about this for 1,500 years, and you weren't supposed to get your consciousness into the tree. You are supposed to pay such tremendous attention to the tree that it came to find you.
Yes, Sartre said nature is mute, which is to me one of the most amazing statements any 20th century philosopher has made in terms of defining alienation. I think that would have to be it.
Well, I don't think the French have been very successful with their philosophers over the last 350 years.
They're welded to materialism. Well, so at this conference, there's been a lot of talk about hope. Where do the poets come down? Are you singing a funeral dirge for a world passing away, or is this the bright birth of the new young prince?
Well, hopefully, hopefully neither in some ways, because you simply have to speak life as it is. So at this time we're speaking tremendous change. We're speaking the stakes are very high. You can fail in life. An individual human being can fail in life. A species can fail in life. I mean, in some ways we always live out our destiny. No matter what we do. It just depends what level you want to live out that destiny. Do you want to live out your destiny on the level of frustration? Because you can do that. Or do you want to step further and deeper into it? So poetry always says the stakes are very high. And it relies on the fact that life itself is magnificent. You speak about the magnificence of life, not in a Pollyannish sense, or in a sense in which you're going to ignore all the difficulties and terrible beauties of life, but in the sense that it's magnificent because you can fail at it. And we as a species can fail. So the hope of the poet is that you can speak to the magnificence of life such that people will be reminded that life is magnificent and you can fail at it, and the stakes are very, very high, the stakes of your life.
So that's almost a bardic manifesto. Well, do you feel moved to speak some poetry? We'll move from talking about poetry to speaking poetry?
Yes. Well, we spoke about the tree earlier and having the world come and find you. And I'm reminded of a very simple poem, but this is a very powerful poem for me. It's a teaching story, actually, out of the Northwest Indian tradition, where the story is there to tell a young boy or girl what to do when they're lost in the forest, or to answer the question. You know, when the young boy or girl asks the question, what do I do when I'm lost in the forest? The elder tells this story. It's been rendered into marvelous modern English by David Wagoner, who has the chair of poetry at the University of Washington in the Northwest United States. And it's a very simple poem called Lost. And here it says, take the burden off your shoulders, basically, the story. And he says, the young boy or girl says to the elder, what do I do when I'm lost in the forest? And the elder says, stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here. And you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. Listen. Listen. The forest breathes. It whispers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again saying, here. Saying, here. If you leave it, you may come back again saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to Ren. If what a tree or a branch does is lost on you, then you are surely lost. If what a tree or a branch does is lost on you, then you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you.
Alexander Shulgin, Sasha to his friends, is nothing less than the godfather of psychopharmacology, an expert on the cyclicized phenylethylamines, that is, psychoactive compounds useful in the emotional recovery of traumatic events. Shulgin has given his life to the study of the pharmacology of psychedelic experience. In Prague, he told me, greater frontiers lie ahead. The next lost continent to be explored by Alexander Shulgin, the psychoactive tryptamines. Sasha suggested that I join him for a stroll among the graves of the cemetery of the Jewish ghetto of Prague, Europe's oldest ghetto. There, walking among the stones, we reminisced and speculated about the history and the future of psychopharmacology. What do you make of your Russian colleagues here?
I'm fascinated by what he's doing, and I'm intrigued by his ability to get out what he is doing into the West, because the status of a physician in Russia is not what we have come to respect in the West.
You're talking about Yevgeny Krupinski.
Yes.
I imagine you don't view ketamine with... Well, how do you view ketamine?
It's an anesthetic, and it's a dissociative thing, and it puts me out of body.
It's very dissociative. It puts me out of mind.
You're away, and I, frankly, with a full bladder, like being here. And you suddenly realize that someone has a full bladder, and at only one intellectual level you realize it's you.
Yes. No, it's so seriously disassociated me that I felt it was a great victory when I finally realized that this was a drug. For a long time I couldn't figure out what it was or who was even asking the question.
They kept calling it vitamin K, which is a fascinating euphemism for allowing to have some semblance of a food additive or a dietary supplement. But
well,
I had the interesting pleasure of being back at a big company in the East the day they had bought the rights to distribute ketamine. And I informed them, you do realize that ketamine is being made by Park Davis and shipped off to Mexico, and it's imported in liter bottles, all with a percentage of preservative, and comes right back into California in the trunk of the car. And they were shocked. They did not know there was any abuse whatsoever.
Never could have conceived of human abuse.
About 20 years ago, there's a class of compounds called quinupridines. And for about 3 or 4 years, I just noticed that there's no publishing in the Russian literature whatsoever on the area of quinupridines. And then all of a sudden, the Russian literature started publishing. And then we went into a sort of a gap. And then quinupridine benzylate, which is one of the most potent of the anticholinergics, was suddenly revealed that the Russians were working on it as a chemical warfare agent. And then we were working on it as a defense against their chemical warfare agent. And it's active 10, 20 micrograms.
10, 20 micrograms.
It makes you really wonky. It's like atropine. Delusion, confusion. But they design these fantastic bombs that they can explode and send out millions of little hypodermic needles. And so they don't have to worry about wind blowing it downwind or upwind.
So it's essentially a chemical cluster bomb.
Cluster bomb, but with little hypodermic needles. Yeah, elegant.
So that's probably in the inventory.
It's already in the inventory.
Well, someone mentioned to me that you had expressed interest now that you felt you had sort of done the work you wanted to do with cyclicized phenylethylamines and that you were going back to looking at tryptamine.
Very much so. That's the other side of the coin. It's as rich and unexplored areas of phenethylamines were 20 years ago.
So are you going to illuminate it for us?
Oh, absolutely. I've already made the T-butyl methyl. Isopropyl methyl is well known, but the secondary butyl methyl is not known. They're all active by smoking.
And what are they, could you, in a blind test, pick one out from another, or are they sort of...
I don't know yet. I doubt it somehow. I think they're all going to be fast, impactful, and all very much like DMT.
duration-wise or
Duration-wise,
presentationally?
Probably some, perhaps a little bit